Good afternoon and welcome to Bull Market Stock Show. This is your host, Rian Robinson. And we're doing actually Friday's inflation number as it ballooned as I predicted. Excuse me. As I predicted, I predicted it will go to 7%. But it actually was just below about 6.8%. And it's a 40-year high. So we're going back to Ronald Reagan's time when he was president, where inflation was totally out of control. And then, obviously, at that time, Paul Volcker came into effect, and then he lifted up the interest rates quite aggressively to bring actually inflation down. Now, the whole thing is, it is what will happen on Wednesday. Will Jerome Powell play the same role as what Paul Volcker did in the 1980s, where he ramped up the inflation? And inflation was as high as it was double digits actually, and also the interest rates were actually in double digits at that time. So that is the whole thing. Will actually Jerome Powell play actually the Paul Volcker story? That is the big question. For now, the dollar is actually performing well because the market is anticipating that Jerome Powell will act aggressively and lift up interest rates, or maybe stop tapering entirely, and then he will actually start to lift up interest rates. But it seems that the Federal Reserve will act aggressively when it comes to Wednesday. It could be that the dot plot will show that interest rates will come earlier and they will stop basically the whole entire tapering story. So it actually is a tense time. For me, I'm actually out of the market. I see the dollar is actually performing well, but I'm out of the market. I will rather wait for Wednesday at 9 o'clock of when Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell will talk, and then I will take trades actually afterwards. Because in the beginning of the year, I actually did lose some money where actually I trade actually basically projecting what the Federal Reserve will do. I was right actually of what the Federal Reserve will do. They did not raise the interest rates, and I initially thought at that time that the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar will reach record highs. That was not the beginning of the year. And then what happened? The bond market erupted entirely. The bond yields actually went up, and then the dollar got stronger, and I was against the dollar beginning of this year because I thought inflation would have get out of control, and which it did. So I was right. So I thought the dollar would go strong, would go weaker, and I was wrong with the market, and I actually lost quite a lot of money beginning of this year. Well, the main thing is now, obviously, I gained a bit of experience this time because obviously it was the first time where I have to trade with inflation. And normally it was a deflation story, and it was actually quite simple. Now it's an inflation story. And for a lot of traders, this is actually new territory. The thing is that what happens now is to wait rather for for Wednesday at 9 o'clock. That is where Jerome Powell will start to talk. And that is where you can make your decision. If he actually comes aggressively by lifting up interest rates, or say he will lift up interest rates sooner, and he give a time and date and becomes more aggressively, that is where you will see a strong dollar. If we do nothing, keep the pace of tapering as the same, that will be dovish, and then we will sell off the US dollar. For now, I'm totally out of the market. I'm just going to wait for what's going to happen on Wednesday, and then I'm going to enter. But the inflation story, it's a huge problem in the United States, and it looks like the Democratic Party in the United States is doing absolutely nothing. I must say, Joe Biden is literally absolutely useless when it comes to this whole story, and it looks like it's about to get worse because he is doing absolutely nothing. What he is doing is actually increase spending on inflation. I'm actually glad for South Africa that our Reserve Bank already started to lift up interest rates as a more cautious approach. There, they keep policies loose. They keep on spending. The governments keep on spending. Interest rates is rapidly low. They keep on printing money. That is a recipe for disaster. And Joe Biden, as president of the United States, is doing an absolute terrible job. But obviously, you will not see that on the mainstream media because he is the old angel that is there. And he's an absolutely a terrible president. That I don't know how the hell America came to that conclusion to elect him. But that is the problem with free money. When you get free money, the result is what you get now, where inflation is getting out of hand. For me personally now, it's just to stay out of the market for today and tomorrow. And on Wednesday, when the Federal Reserve is talking, that is where we'll act. For now, you will see the market is moving up and down. You will see the Australian dollar is down, and then it will go up. The euro is up, then it go down. The best thing is to stay out for now and just wait for Wednesday. and then you can take a trade. But the whole thing is the Build Back Better plan for the United States, which absolutely is a disaster. But please, before I will actually go further on, please press on that like button. And also leave your comments. It actually helps with the ratings, and it push up on the algorithm. So please just push on your likes, and also just drop your comments of questions that you have regarding the show. I will just play you actually the small clip just to see what is actually happening with this whole inflation story.
This morning, inflation rates not seen in nearly 40 years. Consumer prices up 6.8% in November compared to last year.
Inflation is affecting people's lives.
Gas, rent, used and new cars all more expensive, with meat, poultry, fish and eggs up by 1%, pork by 2.2%. President Biden acknowledging the pain people are feeling.
They're paying more for things they need than they had to pay before.
This guy is terrible. He's beyond terrible. He's actually going on spending more with his Build Back Better plan. Now, for the Federal Reserve, they are too late to act. That is the sad part, because I did say in previous podcasts that it's a policy mistake. They must lift up the interest rates faster so that the government don't spend more money. No, they didn't. That guy is going to spend another additional trillion US dollars in the US economy, which will drive up inflation even further. So I think that is enough for the Federal Reserve to act aggressively now before things are getting totally out of hand. The thing is, inflation is normally delayed, and it takes time to kick into the data. And I think, for me, the Federal Reserve is too late, because the Biden administration is going to spend an additional trillion, and that will push them to the inflation cliff, and that will lead to the Federal Reserve to push up interest rates more aggressively.
This morning, inflation rate.
President Biden has an inflation problem. Prices are going up at the fastest pace since the late 1970s, early 1980s. Everybody knows it, everybody sees it, but the president hasn't got a clue how to deal with it. He thinks that spending another $4 trillion on his Build Back Better plan will somehow control inflation. And he says it won't cost taxpayers a dime. You know, it's dangerous when a president and his party abandon economic reality. So what is causing inflation? Well, it's the wall of money that's hitting the economy. It's congressional handouts that's made so many consumers flush with cash. Biden wants more of it, by the way. It's the supply chain mess that makes things scarce. Biden has done nothing to fix that. And it's the Biden crackdown on energy production. The solution to this inflation problem may be very painful. It will not be Build Back Better. That won't solve inflation. It's the Federal Reserve that's going to have to do it. Now, when inflation spiked in the late 70s, it was Fed Chair Paul Volcker who solved it by inducing a very deep recession. Yes, it was exceptionally painful, but it had to be done. So what about now? It is the Fed's job to contain inflation, and they do it by raising interest rates. And when they do that, the economy slows, sometimes dramatically. That's what's coming at us. And it is the Biden administration that's pushing us over the inflation cliff. Second hour of Varney, just getting started.
That is the warning. When they press the accelerator on the interest rates, which he doesn't have a choice, but they have to do it because of the $4 trillion spending plan that Biden still has. He doesn't have a choice but to lift up the interest rates. That's why I'm a bit scary when it comes to Wednesday. Because if he says that he's going to lift up interest rates aggressively, or with a dot plot that they have, then definitely you will get a stronger dollar. If he's dovish, which I don't know will it be, then you will have a weaker dollar, which will add to more inflation. And that makes this whole situation a bit tricky. That's why I'm out of the market. So the best thing is rather to sit on the fence and wait for Wednesday. When they have the discussion and you see that interest rates are going up, that is where you can start to jump in. But for now, it looks very uncertain, and the dollar is jumping totally up and down. But honestly speaking, the Federal Reserve is totally behind the curve. But at least Jerome Powell in the last meeting that he had, he did acknowledge that they can't talk about transitory inflation, because that is totally out of the door. Inflation is very sticky in the United States because it's rental prices that go up. It is the wages that is actually the wage demand that's increasing. You have food prices that goes up, energy prices that goes up. So he can't ignore the facts, but to lift up the interest rates. So that's why the dollar is getting strong, because the market is anticipating that they will lift up the interest rates. The thing is, with how much? That is the big thing. Will they lift it now? If it is the case that they start to lift up interest rates this coming Wednesday, the dollar will shoot right through the roof, because obviously it will go with tapering and lift up the interest rates. The thing is, the Federal Reserve need to act, and they need to act soon before it's getting totally out of hand. The House, the Congress, and the Senate, they need to trim the government there to stop them from spending the $4 trillion Build Back Better plan. Because if that comes through in the system, that is more money in people's pocket, and people will just buy more nonsense. And that will lead to higher inflation. So it is not good to give free money. It's nice in the beginning, but at the later end, you will have to pay with inflation. So for now, honestly, my advice is to sit on the fence and rather wait for Wednesday and to see what is the Federal Reserve Chair will doing. But I think this is Jerome Powell's Paul Volcker moment, where he needs to ramp up inflation, to ramp up interest rates to contain actually inflation. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. That is it from my side. I will see you guys tomorrow again at 4 o'clock, and all the best with trading. And then I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.